Hello and welcome to the first episode of my podcast. You might be wondering, who the heck are you? Well, I'm just a guy named Sean who loves comics. See? And I'm also interested in making my own independent comic. I have a pretty decent TikTok following, so I leverage this to talk to some interesting people. I am Floating City Comics, all one word, on TikTok if you want to check it out. My guest today is Matthew Selle. Matthew is a fellow TikToker like me who likes to talk about comics, who just got his first comic funded on Kickstarter. We talk about the ins and outs of Kickstarter, what his comic is about, and how he got into comics. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, so I want to talk to you about your Kickstarter Powerplay, which I saw you just reached 2 stretch goals.
We did. We hit the second stretch goal earlier today, so now I got to scramble and get one of my half-finished ideas into a third one.
What are you thinking for your 3rd stretch goal?
Oh, man. Shouldn't have asked me that because I'm still working on it. I know I have a friend who can hook me up with like a 3D sculpting guy. So what I might try to do, no promises, is get like 3D printed little like minis of the characters from it, which I think would be really, really fun. That'll probably be a higher goal, so I don't know if we'll hit it, but that's what I'm trying to set up for that 3rd stretch goal.
Yeah, because what do you think that would end up costing you per mini, you know?
As that's the thing I still need to figure out. Like I said, I'm going to be going through a friend who knows a guy, so I'm going to contact him like right after we're done here and try to figure that out for myself.
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I was creeping your Kickstarter profile. I saw you've supported like a couple D&D things.
Yeah, I'm a big D&D guy. Yeah, I love stuff like that. So that's that, and then another miniatures game I've been playing lately inspired that. I was talking to a friend and we were like, oh, we could do minis of the characters. And so that's maybe what's going to happen now.
That's awesome, man. Do you play a lot of D&D?
I do, yeah. I've played for years, both as a player and a DM. It's, been a favorite pastime for a while.
Man, I've been getting into like D&D podcasts the last 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never played D&D, but I've listened to like so many hours of D&D podcasts.
Yeah, you should check it out, man. I highly recommend it to anybody. Like, it's such a good game for really just a wide audience because you can always find something in it that you'll enjoy playing because there's so much variety and character creation,
Yeah, I really want to, and I've talked to a couple friends like and convinced them to play with me. But they're not into it, they're just doing it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, shut up about it. But we'll see. So I'm going to try and DM a game with like 3 friends who've never played. I've never played or DM'd. We'll see how it goes.
Well, yeah, I hope it goes well for you, man. Those first games are fun.
Yeah, like I think I might actually just get like some sort of because initially I was like I wanted to write my own setting and do all this like creative work ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
But my worry is that I'm gonna sink like 10 hours or more, like a bunch of time into it, and then my friends after like an hour will be like, "Cool, dude, can we do something else?"
Mm-hmm. I mean, as someone who does kind of make up their own settings for most of their campaigns, because I'm a writer, I enjoy that. Your players are going to derail stuff, and it's all in good fun. But
oh yeah,
they will come up with a billion chaotic ideas that you never saw coming, no matter how much planning you do. Which is one of my favorite parts of the game because I love improving stuff. It's a fun time.
Yeah, it's basically impossible to predict what's going to happen, right? Like,
oh yeah,
you can make some educated guesses, but you're probably going to be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Are you in school for writing then, or?
No, I am a creative marketing major. That's what I call it. So I take a lot of like marketing and business classes, which I don't mind, or I don't like the business stuff as much, but the marketing is interesting. But then as the creative side, I'm also taking graphic design, video production, things like that. So, just something that I decided would be interesting to go into like an editorial space or making, just content creation in general. I figured it'd be helpful for that.
Yeah, man, that sounds like a good plan. Like, I'm a graphic designer, and I keep seeing these job postings coming up that want someone who can write their own ad copy, like that can do everything basically.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good path. Like, if you have a instinct for writing and you're interested in that kind of stuff, like I think that's a good way to go about it. Because right now I basically do graphic design and like motion graphics, but not really involved in the writing and stuff like that. If you want to get into the industry, you kind of do need that writing part as well for most jobs. So that's a good plan, it sounds like. Well, tell me about Powerplay. What's like the plot of Powerplay?
So the concept of Powerplay is it's about a superhero game show. It's a concept that just kind of like popped into my head one day. I was like, that would be a fun thing to explore. So, in the world, there's a game show called Powerplay. And the general concept is just there are two superheroes competing on live TV to catch a villain. And whoever gets the villain first and brings him in gets a cash prize. It's a very simple, straightforward concept. I got to play around in the space quite a bit. There's some big twists. I'm kind of proud of the mystery that I think I was able to get into a little one-shot. But yeah, it's a really straightforward concept, just kind of playing around in an interesting space that I came up with.
So is it a self-contained story then? Or do you see it becoming future issues of Powerplay?
So this comic that I'm Kickstartering right now is a one-shot. But as I was writing it, as I always tend to do, I kept coming up with more and more ideas. So this is still a self-contained one-shot. But if there's an audience for it and people like it, I will definitely be trying to take it to a full series, in which case this will sort of be like the pilot episode for that. And the main series would have the same characters and things like that. But if I'm given the opportunity, I would love to tell more of this world. But yes, to answer your question, this one is a self-contained story.
Yeah, it's a self-contained story, but there's room for
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I saw you had a different Kickstarter that failed. Sorry, I forget what it was called.
It was called Encore. Yeah, that was one of the first books I wrote. That was years ago now, and that one did fail because I had set my goal way too high. I had been I was like a high schooler at the time, and I was really excited about it, and I shot way too far. It was a good concept, but I overshot really far there, and I overextended myself, and it didn't get funded. But I learned a ton from that project, so much. I'm one of the artists from that. I'm actually working with two of the guys from that I'm working with on Powerplay. So Powerplay was kind of me taking a lot that I learned in that first project and trying again, applying it to a new one that has already been funded. So that one's been very successful.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So how did you meet these artists then?
I mean, it's so not fancy, but I literally just met them online. Like I was for the first Kickstarter that I did, Encore, I had wanted to write comics for a while, and I basically decided, screw it, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. And so I talked to some people that I knew, and I just kind of went online and I found artists who were looking for work. And it's really as simple as that. But for Powerplay specifically, the colorist is a guy I worked with on Encore. So he's someone that I've been working with for a while. And the line artist, a guy named Nick Izzo, I just saw his work on Twitter. And I was like, this is really well done. I'm surprised you don't have more followers. Do you want to work on a project with me? And he said yes. And here we are now today.
This interview I'm doing is kind of selfish because I want to create my own comic Kickstarter, right? So I'm like,
fantastic, man.
So I'm like trying to pick your brain about this kind of stuff.
Yeah. Feel free to ask any questions you have. I'm happy to help.
Yeah. I'm kind of wondering how you sell it to them, because potentially this project isn't going to go, right? If the Kickstarter doesn't reach its goal, and are you paying them up front for these sample artwork and stuff that you do? Yeah.
So that's what so take Powerplay, because that's the currently running thing. What I did was I approached this guy, Nick, and I said, hey, so I've got this Kickstarter that I want to do. It will be like a 22-page one-shot, but we're taking it to Kickstarter. So what I would like for you to do now, if you're open for it, is draw me 3 sample pages, and I will pay you for those up front. And then we'll use that as the Kickstarter example. And if it gets funded, then you're agreeing to do the whole thing with me, and I'll pay you upon funding. So basically, yes, you're right. Just pay them up front for any samples. Of course, make sure that they are willing to do the full one if it gets funded, because you don't want to have artists switch up in the middle.
Right.
But yeah, that's the gist of it. It's pretty simple. Most artists that I've found have been willing to do that because they're getting paid for work, whether it gets funded or not. So.
Yeah, they're getting paid for at least a couple pages, right?
Yeah.
The script that you're giving to these artists, are you outlining? I've been reading a ton about different ways of providing scripts to artists and things like that. Are you providing a lot of direction in terms of the page layout and things like that, or are you just kind of letting them do what they think is best with the script?
Yeah, it's kind of a blend of the two. So there's a billion different ways to do comic book scripts.
Yeah.
And some writers will get mad at me for saying this, but I treat it a lot like a movie or a TV show script. I think of it very much the same way, which, worked for Powerplay because it's sort of a TV show based thing. But the way I do it is, I go in and I have my panel description. So it'll say, let's just use something generic. They're like, panel 1, Spider-Man swings through the city. And then there'll be a dialogue and it'll say like, Spider-Man, stop, Green Goblin, you fiend, something like that. And it'll be generally pretty generic. So I'll keep it to like 1 or 2 lines of description for the scene itself, because a general rule, the artists probably know more about how to draw something cool than you do. So I keep it kind of vague. Now, the exceptions to this being, of course, if there's something specific I need for the story, or if I just have a cool idea. If you have a really cool concept that you think will be cool in your head, put it in there, see what the artist can do with it. Because if it's cool, chances are they're going to like it and want to draw it. But it is important to let the artist have a lot of that direction, because if you have a great team, they can bring so much more to your descriptions.
I was doing something similar with this comic that I'm working on. I actually just laid out the panels and like put in the dialogue and the speech balloons and everything, and then would just like put descriptions of what kind of I'm picturing for each image, and provided it to my friend who's an artist, and with the caveat that like, hey man, change anything.
Yeah,
I'm not married to this layout. This is just the easiest way that I could try and explain it, because I was like putting it into a PDF, writing it out sequentially, and it's like, it's confusing trying to describe, okay, this is the 4th panel on the page. It was just easier to kind of illustrate what I found.
Now, I have a tip for you then that you might like, you might not. You say it's confusing to, lay out the panels on the page. Don't. Let the artist do it. Most artists want to do that kind of stuff themselves because it gives them more control over how they tell that story visually.
Yeah.
And when you said too, like putting the voice balloons on the page, that's actually something I considered doing at first too. And I had another writer tell me, don't do that, because that job goes to the letterer. And that, I think, is one of the most important but underappreciated jobs of a comic book letterer, because they have to fill these, they have to take these big white circles basically and put them in a space that does not block or distract from any of the art. And the placement of those voice bubbles in ways that complement the artwork is an art form that I do not understand. The guys that I work with are great at that. Man, it's hard to place voice bubbles sometimes.
Yeah, I can't imagine, especially like in the 60s when there was a ton of dialogue. And they're doing it by hand back then too. Like, that would have been a crazy job.
Oh, nightmare.
Luckily now, they're on a computer, they can drag it around, figure out.
Yeah, I'm sure that makes life so much easier for them. Thank you, Christian, my letterer. I love you, man.
Yeah. And so you're actually getting some of these comics printed for, I think it's like the $15 tier on your Patreon.
Yes.
And printing and sending out these comics. Does the $15 cover shipping as well?
No, it's 20 with shipping to the United States.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, there's some other countries where the shipping rates are a little bit higher, but for the United States, it's 20.
Gotcha. And where are you getting this printed?
So I am actually going to do something that I don't think a lot of people do, because I'm using a local printer. I'm in a very small town right now, and I will be for the summer and a little bit beyond. I'm pretty close even when I'm at school. So I'm going to be using a small town local printer, because, they have you can get a lot more personal with them. And if there are problems, it's a lot easier to go to them and be like, hey, can you fix this or change this little thing, rather than a huge company. Like I said, a lot of people aren't going to have access to that or aren't just going to want to do that, understandably. And you can do a lot of overseas printing, stuff like that. There's a billion ways to get your comics printed. I'm just choosing to go the local route because it's what I've done before.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking something similar for myself, because I have a relationship with a local printer, being a graphic designer.
Yeah.
But I'm a bit worried that it's not going to feel like a real comic. Like, the paper's going to be the wrong type or something. It's going to be off,
I would say they can probably. I'd just ask. Like I should know the specific type of paper that comic books are printed on off the top of my head. I don't know that, but I can Google it really easily. And there's specifications, so you just go to them and be like, hey, here's the type of paper I want. Can you do this? And chances are they'll be able to.
Now that you've hit your goal, are the artists like starting work on this already, or is that going to be happening, a month from now?
I know that the line artist Nick is starting work. He actually said he was planning on starting it in like a month or two, but he was so excited that he was going ahead and starting now. So I was happy to hear that, of course, because he's been really enthusiastic about the project, just like I have. So yes, the art is starting production right now that we've hit funding goal.
That's awesome. Do you have like outlines for future issues you might do, or is that like
in my head? In my head, yes, because that's just, like I said, that's the way my brain works. Is once I come up with a story idea, like constantly throughout the day, I'll just feel like, oh, that'll be cool. Oh, that'll be cool. Oh, that'll be cool. And I'll come up with more ideas. So yeah, I have outlines for a whole arc in my head that I haven't scripted out yet, that I'll script out soon. But yes, short answer, yes.
Yeah, I know exactly how that goes. Like the comic that I have in mind, I have like basically 12 issues kind of roughly planned out in my head.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem that I'm realizing with it is that it's like your first Kickstarter, it would be too expensive to do like a 12 issue thing.
Yeah, that's a big ask for a first project.
Yeah, and the first issue isn't necessarily a self-contained story. It's more of like a setup for this larger story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to rework it so that the first issue, if that's all that happens, it would still be a satisfying read,
Yeah. Now, what you can do, and this works better for some people more than others, but you can kickstart like individual issues. I know a couple people that have done. He did a successful Kickstarter for his book called Leaders of the Free World, and he did a successful Kickstarter for 1 and a successful Kickstarter for issue 2 a couple months later, then issue 3. Now he's working on issue 4, and he's just doing them all individually. And yeah, that's been going great for him. So I don't know if you could do that with 12. I feel like that might stretch it a little bit. But if you wanted to try to get a couple made in like a continuous thing, that is a doable task.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I wonder if your Kickstarter would trend downwards in time because you're probably not keeping all the people from the first issue, and onto the second.
Yeah, I don't remember what the stats on that book did, but like I said, he's on to 4 now. I think he's working on 4 at the moment, so his momentum is going strong.
Yeah,
but once you have like the first couple issues up, you can start selling those on Comixology and things like that, and so you have the bonus fans coming in from that and a little bit of bonus income that can help you with future issues. It's a rolling thing.
Yeah, that's true. So that's kind of your plan? After a while, your comic's going to be up on Comixology for like a $3 purchase or something like that?
Yeah, I would. I'll definitely have it available for digital purchase eventually. And I would love, fingers crossed, to get it into some of my local comic stores. We'll see if that can happen. But yeah, if I can get it into any comic stores, I would love to be able to do that as well.
Hey man, that would be the dream.
Yeah, that's the idea.
And you can die happy. How did you get into comics, by the way?
So that's kind of a funny story, which I've told before, because I don't know. I have no idea how I got into comics. I like vaguely remember being into them as a kid, and my parents have confirmed this. Like I like Spider-Man and Iron Man, as I think most little kids do, in that capacity. And then I remember being like ridiculously obsessed with them to the point of this giant wall of comics behind me.
Yeah.
But I don't know what was the tipping point for that. And neither does anybody else. I remember talking to my mom about it one time because I had a friend who was also really into comics. And she thought that I was the one that got him into she thought that he was the one that got me into comics. And his parents thought that I was the one that got him into comics. So no one knows where it came from. It just kind of happened. And here I am today.
It's a good hobby, I think,
Yeah.
It's expensive, but
yeah. But it's a good one.
And there's like, what I love about comics is there's this deep lore that is never ending.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, if you read a comic, chances are there's going to be some obscure character in it that you've never heard of. And if you look at their Wikipedia page, it's gigantic, and they've been in 100 different issues of comics, and there's like this insane backstory to this character. And in that backstory, there's 10 more characters that you've never heard of, and you can just like, always spider web out from there. It's a never-ending thing. Like, you can never truly learn everything there is about even, say, one company like Marvel Comics.
Oh yeah, there's because I put most of my resources into Marvel, and I'm still getting comments on my TikTok videos. It's like, hey, can you talk about this character? And I'm like, I've never heard of this character in my life. Who is this?
Yeah, I get those all the time too. And
Mm-hmm.
then like I'll look up the character and be like, oh man, this is gonna, like, if I want to do this character justice, like, this is hours and hours of research for me to actually do this. So
yeah, it's wild.
When did you start your TikTok, by the way? That's kind of how I came to know about you and stuff. I randomly came across one of your TikToks one day.
Yeah, I started my TikTok about 2 months ago.
Oh, nice.
It was very, very recent. And I was just, I was in my college apartment, not really doing much because there was, sort of like the end of quarantine, and I was doing school and there wasn't much going on. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to record some TikToks and post them. And I did. And it just sort of started getting very popular, far more than I expected so quickly. But yeah, there's no real dramatic story there. I just kind of was like, I'm bored. Let's do it. And it worked.
Yeah, the same thing kind of happened with me. I started in like October, I think, and it was a pretty dramatic like following increase, and then it would like level out, and then it go up, level out, go up.
Yeah,
it's a weird roller coaster. There's seemingly I can't understand. Like, I never understand why a video does better than another.
Oh, I don't either, man. I'll make a video. I'll post videos that are like, it's like, it's not a bad video. I just needed to get another one out today. And then it'll do super well. I'm like, well, sure. Why not? I
know. I'll spend hours like carefully making this video as best as I can, and I'll post it. It'll get like a couple hundred views,
Mm-hmm.
And then something you just slap together gets like 1 million views. And it's like, I don't understand.
The algorithm, man. We're all just playthings to the algorithm.
Do you think you got a lot of Kickstarters from TikTok?
I know I did, yeah, because that was the main place that I promoted it. And I've gotten so many, like, my first one was a lot of family and friends, and this one also had that. But the majority of this Kickstarter has come from names that I don't recognize. And so since TikTok is the main place that I promoted it, I've just kind of assumed that it's from there. And I know I have some friends on there that have said they've backed and things like that. So yeah, it's been fantastic having that source of promotion.
I've always dreamed of like having my own comic.
Yeah.
I kind of stumbled into this TikTok thing, and it's only been the last like couple months that I've been thinking, wait, I might actually be able to do this,
Yeah, you should do it, man. You have like double my following, so I'm sure you could get enough backers to support something.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I believe in you, man. I'll back it.
I'm gonna do it for sure. I had a friend that's an artist lined up, and I think he's kind of fallen off the project a bit. So I need to look for a new artist, but it's gonna happen. I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
And if you're watching this, my friend who might have fallen off the project,
get back here, dude. Come on.
Yeah.
I don't even know you, but get back here. What's your story concept about? You got to tell me about it.
Okay, I wonder if you run into this too, because you said your story does have kind of a twist later in it.
Yeah, don't want to say too much, but yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, and that's my problem, is I have a hard time really talking about it too much without like revealing this twist.
Yeah, I understand that. That's why with Powerplay, I was so lucky because I get to say it's a superhero game show, and then people are always like, ooh, like I get those few words that usually intrigue people, and then I don't have to go into more detail.
Right.
But I get that twist kind of making it hard to give your elevator pitch. That's a problem I've run into several times.
Yeah, I want to get people interested, but I don't want to give away everything.
Yeah.
I guess, so what I'll say is it's called Ill Will,
Okay.
And it's
Good title.
it's about a guy. Well, it's about a child, I suppose, named Will. And the first couple pages are like him in a hospital bed. He's dying. Um, and it's set in this place that's below this fantastical floating city, right? I wanted to bring in the
Okay.
floating city element. So it's like the poverty-stricken streets below this amazing floating city that's all like
Yeah.
steampunk and cool. But this is just where the poor people live below it in the shadow.
Mm-hmm.
Will dies, but then he wakes up as an old man,
Okay.
and he's being tortured by someone. I can't really reveal who's torturing him, and he kind of comes to realize that he can't die. So when he dies, he's basically, think Deadpool, except if Deadpool died, his consciousness went out into space and then came back to a different time frame.
Okay.
So he died as a 6-year-old. His consciousness went out, came back to him as a like 70-year-old.
Yeah.
So every time he
Okay.
dies, you kind of revisit a different part of his story. So it's telling the story in a non-linear fashion.
Yeah. Okay. I see what you're talking about. Like that's hard to give an elevator pitch for. That's a
Yeah.
really like big concept there. I don't know, just like I don't know, there's something with like steampunk reincarnation. Like that those two words stuck together I think are enough to like trigger people's brains to be like, "Oh, I want to hear more." But I don't know where you go from there. That's interesting though. I like the concept.
One of the important parts of the concept for me is depending on what's like when the story is taking place. So when he dies, it's in the 60s, and the comic's going to be styled to look like a comic from the 60s. And then
Oh,
when he wakes up in modern times, it's going to be more of a modern art style. And
that's fantastic. That's a really cool idea.
yeah, I'm really obsessed with this idea, and like,
Yeah, that's a great concept. That'll draw people in really nicely.
yeah, I think it would be cool. And you know, like in a future issue, he'll be in the 80s, and the comic will be styled like the 80s, and
Yeah.
things like that. I think it could be cool, even just like the dialogue and like every way, you know, the illustrations, the coloring, everything you can think of can be of that era. And
Yeah,
then
that'll be
also,
a fun project to do.
yeah, and then also I kind of want to show like this larger superhero world that's happening around him, but he's not necessarily the main character. Will isn't necessarily like a part of this world, but it's happening in the background, and you can see there's like all these crazy superhero events happening that kind of like mimic what would happen in Marvel over the years, you know?
Okay. See, I feel like that's something that you can build an elevator pitch off of. Like this is not it. This is not it. This is my workshop. But like a reincarnating side character in a superhero world, like a story that follows that is really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's a cool that's what you got to set your elevator pitch off of because you hear that and that's a very unique concept.
He's kind of observing all like my inspiration's almost from reading comics out of order, you know? Like
Okay.
when I was
Yeah.
a kid, I would just read Spider-Man comics, and they weren't ever in order because I just get whatever
Yeah.
was cheapest at the comic book store, and you're like,
Same here.
yeah, you're like, oh, Spider-Man has a symbiote in this issue. What's that all about, right? And it's
hmm
kind of fun, like piecing it together when you're reading it out of sequence.
Yeah, that's a really interesting concept. I like the stuff I like the way you say it's based on the experience of reading comics out of order too. That's because that's a cool inspiration. That's a really relatable experience for a lot of people in the fan base. I think that'll resonate well.
Do you get a lot of questions on TikTok about people asking you, like, where to start reading comics?
I do get that, and I try to answer them occasionally, but it's like there's so many. If I answer my usual first response is like, well, what sort of things do you like? Like it doesn't have to be comics. Just like you can give me like a TV show, you can give me a movie, you can give me a comic, something like that. Because like if you say magic, something magical, I'm going to point you to Doctor Strange. If you say you like classic superhero stuff, I'm going to point you to Spider-Man. If you say you like a grittier things, I'm going to point you to my favorite superhero, Moon Knight, things like that. There's a billion different places to start.
Yeah. I always just tell people, like, go to your comic book store and get some things that look cool.
That's another great way to do it. It's just
like
pick what looks
it's
interesting.
as simple as that, you know?
Yeah.
But I think there's so many choices and there's so much history with these characters that kids are just like too intimidated to even begin to try.
Yeah. And that's why newer characters are great too. Like if you start with a character like Miss Marvel or Miles Morales, who have come about in the last, well, actually, they're I forget how old they are, but last few years compared to comics as a whole, that's a lot easier of a starting point than say Peter Parker Spider-Man, where you got 70 something years, probably not that much, something like that.
More than that, I think, because
like 60s,
63 to 21.
I didn't come here to do math. I don't know.
Me neither, man. Do you have any advice for anyone who's getting started on TikTok, wants to like grow a following? Do you have any advice on how they can do that?
I mean, my first thing to say to someone who wants to start is just do it. Like, I don't understand the TikTok algorithm, man. I started posting videos in my apartment bathroom because it was the only mirror that I had, and I wanted to record in a mirror. And to start, I had to take a pair of scissors and jam them into my fan vent so that it didn't make noise so I would record. I had no setup, no experience. I just kind of started. And it worked. If you make content that people like, there's going to be an audience for that on TikTok, I think, especially since their algorithm is so good. Just people who like have started a little bit and want to grow their followings. I would say probably posting regularly, as I post generally like 3 times a day. And I think that's one reason that I've built a lot of following, if only because there are more chances to go viral. As we talked about earlier, like followings will they'll level off and then they'll hit a huge spike, and then they'll level off and hit a huge spike. And I think a lot of that is because random things will go viral. You'll get a lot of your followers from those viral videos, and so you want to get as many chances for that as you can.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a hard time? Lately, I'm having a hard time keeping up with TikTok. Like I wish I could post 3 videos a day, but I'm down to like 1 a day lately because I'm just like, man, I don't have the time.
Yeah, and that's I get that. I'm a college student on summer break right now. I'm luckily pretty light on my schedule other than just working. But so I've got time to record. But yeah, I like posting 3 times a day, probably not necessary. Like as long as 1 a day is, I think, just some sort of regularity so that your fans know what to expect from you will be good. If you don't have time to post 3 a day, if you don't have time to post 1 a day, just keep up with it, and then your following will grow. Coming from a guy who doesn't know what he's talking about, take everything I say with a grain of salt, but it sounds like good advice.
I think it is. And, I don't think anyone really knows what they're talking about with TikTok. Maybe like someone with millions of followers, might have a better handle on it. But
yeah,
I don't think there is a good, like there's always TikTok videos. I don't know if you get served these videos on TikTok that's like the 5 best ways to grow your audience on TikTok.
I get those occasionally. Yeah, I don't really watch them, but
they're always horrible. They're always just like the worst stuff.
Yeah, I don't think you need to do any fancy tricks. I think one thing that TikTok has uniquely to a lot of other social medias, at least on certain sides of TikTok, is it doesn't have to be like overproduced. Like TikTok is a place where, from what I've seen, you can very much just record yourself in your mirror talking about something cool, and you don't need like a fancy setup or anything like that. Like the biggest setup that I have is the backdrop behind me, which is just all the collection I already had shoved into one place. And that's about all the production that I do. I think it's easy for everyday people to get into it.
I mean, that Spider-Man shower curtain couldn't have been cheap.
The Spider-Man shower curtain, man. That unintentionally became such a big part of my brand. I'm not mad about it. I love the Spider-Man shower curtain. I'm glad it's become an iconic thing. But I had that in my bathroom. I was just like, I'm gonna pull it there so you can see it in the background of my shot so that people know what I'm about immediately. And people loved it, and that became my iconic thing. And so now in my new setup, which is in my bedroom, not even in my bathroom, I still have to have it there, which is great. I laugh, but I'm not complaining. Like I said, I love it.
Like 5 years from now, you're going to be, you're going to have some like internet show or something, and you're still going to have that Spider-Man curtain.
I will, man. I got to get a spare in case anything happens to this one.
People will know. You'll get people in the TikTok comments being like, I don't think that's the same curtain. There's less.
No, you can't say that because now people are going to start conspiracy theories. Maybe I'll get two and I'll switch them out like daily and we'll see if anybody notices. Just screw with all my fans in the most minor way.
You need to get a different superhero, like 20 different superhero curtains. And then if you're talking about one of those characters, put that curtain behind you.
Oh man, I would. I sometimes try to coordinate my shirt with characters that I'm doing, but I haven't been able to do that lately because I've been talking about really obscure characters, but I would like to be able to do that more.
Speaking of superhero characters, is there a character that you like gravitate towards more in your reading, or are you just kind of all over the place?
So I'm kind of a weird paradox in my favorite characters because I don't really like super gritty stuff, but I love anti-heroes. So my favorite superhero of all time is Moon Knight. I think because he's an anti-hero, but he's just so like trippy and strange. I love the way his stories are told. And then my other two favorites in no particular order are Venom and Doctor Strange. So you can kind of from that pick immediately tell what I like. Because I like the weird. I like the weird, the magical, the strange, things like that. And then of course Spider-Man. I love Spider-Man, but Moon Knight, Venom, and Doctor Strange are my big three.
Nice. For me, like I like more grounded heroes typically.
Mm-hmm.
But not always, right? But
yeah.
Typically. So like I gravitate towards Spider-Man and Daredevil because they're very like typically realistic, more grounded stories.
Yeah.
Except Amazing Spider-Man's current writer, Nick Spencer.
Mm-hmm.
I had to drop the title. I was like, I can't handle it. This guy's
really.
He's too goofy. I couldn't handle it.
Yeah, I have a friend who is reading through that right now. And I haven't read it yet because I'm waiting for him to finish, and then I'm gonna read it with him. But he loves it. He says it's one of the best Spider-Man runs he's ever read. I've seen so many mixed reviews on the current run, but as someone who likes the more unrealistic, I think I'll like it. But I see your point. Like your point about it being more on the wild side of Spider-Man is very true. It definitely is, and I think there's a big audience for that. But if you're hoping for more of like the Spider-Man Daredevil team up stuff, like you said, that's a very different brand of Spider-Man, so to speak.
Yeah, I read the first like 25 issues he did, and I was like, man, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, he really did go all out.
It was always the last comic that I read in the pile. You know what I mean? Like when you come home from the comic store and you have a pile of comics, it'd always be on the bottom.
Yep.
And I'd be like, oh, okay, fine, I'll read this. So, but it's the only time I haven't picked up Amazing Spider-Man in like, I don't know, 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, runs like that are going to change. Spider-Man's had such a long history. There are going to be some that some people like, some that other people like. One More Day, which everyone hates.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just pure trash.
Oh, yeah. So I got to ask then, right now specifically, if Spider-Man's on the bottom of the pile, what's on the top? What's your favorite series that's running right now?
Daredevil.
Okay, yeah, I should have expected that from the earlier. So I'm a little behind on that one because that's one I'm reading in trades. Is Elektra still Daredevil in that, or is that done now?
I'm not sure either because I haven't been to the comic store in a couple months. So I have so many back issues to go. Like,
okay, yeah.
Way more. Like, most of my reading is probably from the 60s, 70s.
Okay. I see. Yeah, why you're like that's a very different vibe than the current Nick Spencer Spider-Man. So that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, like I dip in occasionally to read Ultimate Spider-Man and Daredevil, and then it's like random stuff that grabs my eye. But typically, yeah, I mostly read 60s, 70s comics.
Yeah, that's an issue. I don't read a lot of the older ones. I don't have anything against them, but just the dialogue style, which I think we brought up earlier. It's so dialogue heavy. Just for me, it's like I can't. It's so hard for me to get through the dialogue heavy books. It's just like my brain doesn't. I mean, I can read it, and I have read many 60s comics, but I just don't prefer it.
Hey, I hear what you're saying. Sometimes I'll open a page and be like, oh my God. Like,
It's just that there's more words than picture.
yeah, like this comic is going to take an hour to read. This is insane.
Mm-hmm.
So I hear what you're saying. I think for me, like collecting comics is almost as big of
Yeah.
as reading them, you know?
Yeah, that's especially for the older ones. As a 20-year-old who does not have money, I haven't gotten hugely into collecting, but I want to, and I'm sure I will eventually. I've got some fun old issues, but nothing really rare.
Right. Mostly trades like
Mhm.
you have behind you.
Yeah, I'm a big trade guy. I do keep up with like a couple series in single issues. I try to always do that, just sort of so I'm up to date with things also as a writer. But I really stick to like my most popular, or my most favorite characters, things like that, and then I read a lot of other stuff in trade.
Are there any like independent comics that you're reading or would recommend?
Yes, so I in my shots in TikTok and behind me right now, you can't really see my indie stuff because it's lower on my shelf. Not not a hierarchy thing. That's just how I decided to organize it.
Right.
But I think my three favorite indie comics. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is amazingly good. I'm a huge Power Rangers fan, and you would think that the comics would be kind of cheesy, but the way I say it is like it's not written for the same audience as the show. It's written for people who watched the show as kids. So the stories are a lot more like well written than you would expect. They've got more deep character development and things like that. It's on like volume 15 or 16 now. It's still ongoing. I would highly recommend the Power Rangers series. I would say my favorite indie book of all time is The Wicked and the Divine, if you've heard of that.
I was going to write it down, but we're recording this, so.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I need to write this down. Yeah, no, I haven't heard of it.
Yeah, The Wicked and the Divine is a book by Kieran Gillen. It is. I've dug myself into a hole here because The Wicked and the Divine is incredibly hard to explain quickly. I would like in this world, is it 90 years? I think it's 90 years. 10 mythological gods are reincarnated. And this story follows like the modern generation of reincarnated gods who use their powers to become pop stars.
Ugh.
And it's such an incredibly strange concept. It sounds so weird to read. And if you hear like people hearing me describing it, you're gonna be like, what the heck? That sounds so weird. And it is, but it's amazing. Because Kieran Gillen, great writer, one of my favorites. And the way he tells stories is so unique. And it's like I dug myself into a hole. I don't know how to describe it, but it's so good. I would very much recommend it. And then my third favorite, Invincible. I had to bring it up because the show, so good. I don't have to say anything else about Invincible. It's so good.
I
read a lot of others, but
I just read Invincible, like the first volume, the first omnibus, I guess.
Yeah.
Last weekend or the weekend before, I forget.
Okay.
And yeah, it was super good.
Have you seen the show or the first season of the show? Oh, go watch it. Go watch it. It's amazing. It's one of the best superhero shows in years, I would say.
I hear like I asked on TikTok if I should watch it, and like it's like very mixed reviews from people on TikTok.
Really? I haven't seen negative reviews of it.
There's a lot of.
I'm sure there's a lot, but
there's a lot of complaining about like bad animation, I guess.
Okay, yeah, the animation is. I wouldn't say. See, I have an animator friend. I have a good friend who's an animator, and so we watched the show together with a bunch of people. And so we talked a lot about the animation, and he was like, "Yeah, I think it's good. You can tell that they didn't have the biggest budget for it, but his take was like he could tell it was low budget, but they worked really well with what they had. So I understand the animation complaints, but I don't think it took away from the story in any major way. But that's my personal preference. I see how people could have been jolted by it.
Yeah, I mean, animation's important, but it's understory for sure.
Yeah, I mean, some people will again get mad at that, but I that's as a writer, that's my take.
Oh, I think 100%. Like, I'm trying to think of a South Park, right? South Park has the early seasons have horrible animation, great story. It doesn't matter.
To be honest, I've never seen South Park, not my vibe, but I know the animation style. And like, yeah,
Gotta watch
because
South
that's just not my style of stuff. But yeah, I know the animation on there is very, very unique. And actually maybe that speaks to it because I haven't seen it, and yet I'd recognize the animation on sight. So
That's true. Hey, I got something I want to show you in regards to the earlier Mighty Morphin Power Rangers comic.
ooh, okay, I'm intrigued. I wonder if this audio is going to be in the podcast. I can say whatever I want now. Go buy my book, nerds. Follow me on TikTok. He's probably going to edit this out, but maybe he won't. Oh, I like. Oh, I need one of those long boxes. Hey, you got the long box and you haven't read the series?
Dude, it's empty because I don't have any Power Rangers comics.
Okay, yeah. You got to get it, man. It's a great series. I got them right behind my head here.
Yeah, just pure nostalgia. Like, I watched the show growing up and then saw the box and was like, man, that box is amazing. I need it.
Yeah, those covers are sweet.
I'll have to check it out then. I just kind of assumed, it was going to be as cheesy as the show, but
yeah, and I'll say like, it's not cheesy. I mean, it's Power Rangers. There's some level of cheese to it, but like,
too, yeah.
there's character development and stuff. In the show, it's like it's episodic, but then in this, they've got big arcs and there's a lot of deeper storylines, things like that.
Have you rewatched the show recently? By the way, like the original '90s.
I haven't rewatched the original recently. I've watched the new ones because I am one of those nerds that watches the new ones. Even despite the fact that I'm 20 years old, I'm very cool. but yeah, I need to go back and rewatch the old ones again.
I just watched a couple episodes, like the episodes where they introduced the Green Power Ranger, and it's amazing how bad it is. Like, I loved this show as a kid, loved it so much, and I wanted to love it again, and I was like, man, I can't. It's just flat out, it's bad.
It's something that you have to go into with a certain level of expectations.
Yeah.
You can't be like, if you're watching Power Rangers, especially as, not a 6-year-old, you have to go in knowing what it is. You have to expect that level of bad and just try to appreciate it for what it is. And then you can get some stuff out of it.
Oh yeah. I mean, I still enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It's still a good hit of nostalgia. I was just amazed at the poor quality, I guess. Like, and this is a couple seasons in this like Green Power Ranger introduction. It's still so, like, you can tell they spend no money on this show.
Yeah. No,
like,
I mean, that's kind of the idea. Fun fact about the Green Ranger.
Popular show for kids. Like, it must have been taking in cash, especially with all these toy sales. And they're just like, nah, $200 an episode. We'll call it good.
Yeah. Fun fact about the Green Ranger, which may play into that low budgetness of it. He was originally only supposed to appear in like 2 episodes, and fans loved him so much that they kept him around for like several seasons. So that might be why he appears so strangely in that first one, because he wasn't meant to stay.
Yeah. Tommy weaseled his way in.
He did.
Do you have a favorite superhero movie?
Favorite superhero movie? Okay, that's a good question. There's a lot of good answers. One that immediately comes to mind is Spider-Man Far From Home. This is a controversial choice, I know, but I think a lot of it for me is nostalgia because I love Mysterio. Ever since I was a kid, like watching the Spider-Man cartoon, he was always one of my favorite villains. So to see him translated into live action, and not only just translated into live action, but done well and done with a comics accurate costume was fantastic to me. I love that. I love Doctor Strange. That was good. I love Ant-Man. Ant-Man's another really funny one. There's another movie that that's not a Marvel one. Chronicle. That's it. That is, not many people have heard of that one.
No.
But it is when was it? I don't remember when it was made. It was in the 2000s, I believe. It is a found footage superhero movie, which is a very weird concept. And it is a weird concept, but the storytelling in that movie is incredible. Very, very sad at times, but very, very well executed. Chronicle is a great movie.
I'll check it out. Sounds good.
I can't say too much about it because it's the same thing we said earlier. There's a twist in
Right.
Chronicle. There's a lot. Like, I can't really tell you what it's about because that'll spoil the entire thing. But I think that's the appeal of a movie like that. Is you go in, I can tell you it's about superheroes, and that's all I can say.
Yeah, the less I know about superhero movies going into them, like generally the more I enjoy them.
Yeah.
I find, like, especially being on TikTok, there's a lot of people that like dissect every single bit of information that's given about like, say, a movie trailer, and I just don't care. I don't want to know that stuff. I don't know if you're the same. Like, I try and watch the first trailer that they put out and then like step away and keep away from spoilers and things.
Yeah. I'm usually not like that because I'm a big nerd. I'm going to go through and try to find all the little Easter eggs and stuff in the trailers, but there is an exception to that lately, and that is with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I am planning on trying to go into that movie completely blind because it's wrapped filming. A movie is done with production, and we have no details really. We have no set photos. They are keeping it under wraps, and I would like to go into that movie and be completely surprised. So I'm probably going to try to avoid trailers for Doctor Strange too.
I think that's the way to go, man. I used to follow this guy called Soups on TikTok, and his whole thing is like superhero movie news, right? So he'll be freaking out because like there's an on-set photo of Peter Parker, walking with a cup of coffee, and the coffee cup says something specific on it.
Yeah,
that reveals that this is going to happen, and I'm just like, man, I can't watch these. It's too much.
I understand that sentiment. I have friends like that. I can't. I get so excited whenever they reveal little things. I'm like, ooh, okay, now I know what's going to happen. I mean, I like to be surprised too, of course. But for me, as someone who's read all the comics, I like being able to pinpoint and have some idea going in.
Yeah, I like it too, but too much is bad. I don't know. There's like a good balance.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm so excited for Loki, though, because that we don't know much about Loki really. We know it's sort of time travel, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
But Loki is in like what, 8 hours from when we're recording this. The first episode of Loki drops.
Is it?
Oh yeah, did you not know? Yeah, Loki drops. The first Loki starts in like 8 hours, dude.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna be staying up till 2 a.m. watching it with some friends tonight.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always like, I want to talk about the Marvel shows when they come out, but I also I like to watch them with my girlfriend at a normal time of day.
Yeah.
So I'm always like a day late to talk about them on TikTok, and then like I think I miss the kind of upswing that you would get on TikTok.
Yeah.
Being so stoked about it, but that's fine. But
well, I'm a single guy with a bunch of nerdy friends, so I got a party at 2 a.m. watch Loki. I did that through all of WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's become a nice tradition.
Yeah, I think my girlfriend would kill me if I tried to if I watched it beforehand and then made a bunch of TikToks. She'd be like, "What the hell, dude? I want to watch this with you."
Yeah, that's wholesome. That's sweet.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you kind of want to plug or talk about, or is there anything more that you want to say about Powerplay?
I mean, obviously, follow me on TikTok if you're not. I'm at Sir_superhero. I talk about a lot of comic book characters, obscure ones, interesting events. It's kind of fun stuff, whatever people want to hear about Marvel, especially.
Are you just on TikTok, or are you on other platforms?
That's the only platform that I do anything interesting. I have Twitter, but I kind of casually, so I'm not going to bother plugging that. I'm going to be starting a YouTube channel, hopefully this summer, because I've gotten requests for that, but that's a project that's still in the works.
It's hard to find the time, man.
Yeah. And then I'm writing, I wrote a comic book. It's called Powerplay. As I mentioned earlier, it's about a superhero game show. It's available on Kickstarter right now. It's hit its funding and both of its stretch goals, but as I talked about earlier again, I'm going to be setting up a third stretch goal soon. It's got, as of today, I think 9 or 10 days left. That's another thing I should know. 9 or 10, but by the time this goes out, it'll be less. But you can still be able to back it. So please go check that out. I think it's a really cool book that you'll enjoy.
nice chatting with you, man. You seem like a nice guy. Let me know if you ever are doing a online D&D thing and need like, a warrior to.
Yeah, man. That'd be awesome. And if you have any more questions about working on your own comic, don't hesitate to ask me. I'd love to answer anything. And if you do start a Kickstarter, please let me know because I will back it.
Cool, dude. Yeah, thanks again. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.
Catch you later.
See ya.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe and all that YouTube garbage.